Hello and welcome to the Offside Line pod with David Barnes and me, Pete Burns. If you enjoy what we do, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode and tell your friends, family, teammates, clubmates and the people you sit next to in the stand all about us. And if you'd like to leave a positive review, it would really help us with the old algorithm as it helps other people find us. Thanks for listening, and here's today's show.
It's the offside line.
This is not soccer. Is that clear?
Utmost danger. Danger could be there. It's a try. A magnificent try for the 21-year-old.
Brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant.
Hello, Offside Liners. Welcome to this week's show. Ho, ho, ho! We're in December. Christmas is coming, Barney. And don't forget, listeners, we have a whole new range of Offside Line merch, which you can now purchase from the site, along with a selection of brilliant rugby books, a one-stop shop for all your Christmas presents. Go to theoffsideline.com and navigate to the rugby gifts on the menu bar. Barney, how are things at your end?
Excellent. Very good. It's a glorious morning.
Again.
I'm just back from training. I've just had my laptop fixed. Brand new screen. You're looking even more handsome than usual, Pete.
The Christmas spirit is definitely flowing through you this morning, Barney.
Yeah.
That's good. It's very kind of you to say that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would recommend Fix My Mac. He's a one-man band. He's an Apple kind of
Affiliated somebody.
okayed person. Yeah. And he works in his wee shed and out the back. Lovely guy. Very distressed about the state of. Basically, my laptop screen broke because I had so much gunk along the bottom of the keyboard, and when I closed it down once, it just cracked it, and so he kind of was very distressed by that. And then he was very distressed when he turned it back on. There's so many open windows and so he kind of gave me a bit of a lecture on that, but very pleasantly. And I would recommend him. Good guy to fix your laptop if you have, or Apple.
Is that going to be the rest of today's activities? Is you just taking all your stuff off your desktop and sorting your files out, making your laptop actually run vaguely efficiently?
Well, it's a bit like whenever you get a new car, you're going to clean it every Saturday, and then so that's the plan. Then you don't do it. When I left his little shed, I was like, I'm going to go home and do that, and I'm not going to do it. I won't. I'll just do it. And then shame face next time when I have to take it back there. See, I didn't learn any lessons.
Oh dear. Yeah. What else has been happening apart from sorting your gunky minging laptop?
I was at Ian Barnes and Jane Barnes' 50th wedding on Saturday.
Of course. How was
I didn't
it?
see any rugby.
How was it?
It was good. It was good. Yeah, it was lovely down in Leith, but I did miss. Well, I missed most of the Premiership rugby. I was at the Selkirk Watsonians game. Watsonians Selkirk
Friday.
On Friday night. Yeah, and then edited the match reports on late Saturday evening. They were a bit late getting up. A bit distracted by the festivities. So
very good. Well, to be honest. Not in the Premiership because there's some good games there, but in terms of the URC matches that you might not have seen, they were not good. They were not good watches.
Did you endure both of them?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I was honestly from Sunday, Monday. I was like, I love doing this podcast most of the time, but I really cannot be bothered coming on and trying to talk about those two games. They were dreadful.
I definitely got that vibe when you texted me on Monday morning. I think you said, we're going to have to do this. It won't take very long.
No.
When do you want to do it? And I kind of pushed you back to today, and you could tell you were absolutely delighted. Although it's just putting off. It was just putting off. We do enjoy speaking to people, and I'm sure we'll warm up once we get going. But yeah, by the sounds of it, I didn't see that. I read the reports, and it's hard. You always plan to, when you miss games like that.
I wouldn't be going back to watch the highlights.
Yeah, I couldn't even force myself to do that. It's hard once you know the result, and it's like that. I usually do. I quite often miss the pro games because I'm doing club stuff, and I'm quite happy to kind of take a bit of time out and watch the games on a Monday or a Sunday night. But I just didn't feel the motivation after editing or looking at the match reports we had on the outside line.
That was the correct decision. Let's go through the results then from the weekend, and then we'll dig into. I want to hear about the Premiership game on Friday night, and then we'll touch on the Edinburgh Glasgow games. One or two vaguely interesting things coming out of there, but generally not the match reports. In the Arnold Clark Women's Premiership last weekend, Cartha travelled to Biggar and inflicted a 51-16 defeat on the hosts. Corstorphine welcomed Heriots from Edinburgh Derby and won 42-24. Hillhead Jordan Hill went to Geary and won 56-27. And in the preview of the upcoming grand final, Stirling County went to Watsonians and won 40-15. Watsonians will need to do a lot of work over the next 2 weeks if they're to stand any chance of reversing that result as they go to Bridgehall for the final. In the Arnold Clark Men's Premiership, Watsonians 22, Selkirk 15, which we'll talk about in a minute. Curry 47, Hawks 14, a result that moves Curry back into second place in the table. Ayr 26, Heriots 14. That's one of the closest results that Ayr have had this season. As you previewed, Barney, that'll be a lot to do with the fact that Heriots have got a strong pack in amongst the Premiership and can go toe-to-toe with Ayr, although it's still a 12-point win. Hoyk 27, Kelso 8, Melrose 24, GHA 13. In the URC, which we're going to be forced to talk about in a minute, Edinburgh 19, Ospreys 14, Glasgow 0, Scarlets 23, and in the final autumn test of the year, South Africa 73, Wales 0. So Barney, let's start on the good news story of all those results. Go to Watsonians and Selkirk on Friday night. Tell me about that game.
Well, good news story, I suppose, if you're a Watsonian. It was good. It was freezing, absolutely Baltic. And a really tough wind, which Selkirk were playing into in the first half, and they did really well. They kind of soaked up a lot of pressure, scored a try just before half time, so they went 8-0 down. It was 8-5, I think, at half time, and your probably money was on Selkirk at that point because they had the wind at the back. But it's amazing how often that happens. And it was funny, Davy Wilson, the Watsonians coach, I'd been at the Watsonians Curry game a few weeks ago when the opposite happened to them. They did well in the first half playing into the wind, and then with the wind in the second half fell out of it, and Curry did them over, and that's basically what happened with Watsonians. Curry, Selkirk just didn't play that clever until they kicked too long. They kicked and they just kept on giving it. Andy McLean, who's playing at fullback, he's playing a standoff really, but he's a really attacking-minded, elusive runner. Just ran it back at them, and so Selkirk. It's interesting. Selkirk. I spoke to Gordon Henderson afterwards, and he, reflecting, got a bonus. They came back and scored a couple of tries to get a losing bonus point, and that might be crucial because they're right in the dogfight. They're actually now bottom, so he kind of took a wee bit of comfort from that, but then probably not as comforted after what happened the next day, which was Hoyk absolutely got a bonus point with a big win against Kelso, a really big result for them. Hoyk now go to Selkirk next week, or this coming Saturday, so that's a huge game. So I think Selkirk will be kicking themselves on form. Watsonians were the team, Watsonians are the better team at the moment and won it, but I think there's an opportunity there that Selkirk be annoyed that they missed, but it was good. It was really bloody cold though. So.
And how's we shaping up then for the top four? We've got Ayr at the top and Curry back into second.
Yeah, despite their points deduction.
Yes. So talk to us about that, because that story broke on Thursday, was it?
It was after that. Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. So it happened on Monday. So basically what happened, and I've got a bit of sympathy for Curry because I think it is just a genuine admin error. And they've not named the players, but they had, one of their players was playing in the Inter-District Championship and they'd played overseas, and it was when they kind of registered to play in the SRU must have been registering the players for that team or whatever it was, realised that this guy didn't have the correct overseas. You have to get the clearance from the other union, and they didn't have the right paperwork for that. So that was an issue, and so they kind of informed Curry chieftains, and Curry realised that there was going to have to do. There was going to be a hearing about that. There was going to be a process, and so they did an audit of all their players, and they realised that they had two other players in the same boat, including an under-18s player or a guy that's come out the under-18s. So they came clean about that, and they had the hearing last Monday, I think it was, and the outcome of it was a 5-point deduction. So it's somebody questioned it and said, should the points not be deducted for every game that these guys have played in? And I think they've taken the view that it's not like they've played a player that wasn't eligible or was suspended. It was just, it's an admin thing. So there's a 5-point deduction and a £250 fine, which seems kind of, I don't know, just a kind of strange,
pointless amount, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where does that money go? I spoke to Davy Wilson. I was speaking to Davy Wilson afterwards. He goes like, £250. Where's that going? Is that part of the Murrayfield refurbishment?
Well, I suppose Christmas party time, Barney. That's just bought a few more bottles of wine.
Absolutely, yeah, maybe something like that, yeah. So they lost 5 points, and I think they're a bit. In fairness, they wanted to get in front of it. I spoke to the chairman on Friday. He'd actually, I didn't know him. He emailed me during the week, and we kind of had been like ships in the night. But we spoke on Friday, and he said that he was quite frustrated. The SRU hadn't. He was wanting to find out how they were going to communicate this. He was appreciated. Well, by that point, I think the league table had been changed on the SRU website with no explanation. And his thing was, we want to kind of explain. We don't. We know how. As the phrase, a lack of information creates a vacuum, doesn't it? And it gets filled with gossip and what have Curry been up to. So they were quite keen. So they actually came to the offside line and wanted to. So we did a story on it. And actually, I think the reaction, most people looking at it going, yeah, it's a bit of a cock up. No skullduggery here. They're going to have to take their medicine. And I think from a Curry point of view, they're still second. You know, they're just not quite as close to Ayr, who they weren't realistically going to catch anyway. So I think in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't do them a huge amount of damage. It maybe gives them a bit of a galvanising. Certainly played quite well against Hawks by the sounds of it. A bit of a galvanising thing, but I'm not sure there's huge amount of or there's really any kind of nefarious undercurrent to any of this. It's just a bit of poor admin, really.
Yeah. I think they were not saying that it was like new people coming in at the time.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a turnaround. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I know that. I mean, I don't know who had been responsible. Sean Scott was the director of rugby, and he's not the director of rugby now. I mean, that'd be unrelated. That's just Sean, going off to do his own thing. But you wonder whether, it's just, I did wonder a bit. I bet there'll be kind of club secretaries and team managers all scurrying to their laptops and trying to make sure that they've got it all over Scotland doing it. And one of the points that was made, and I don't really know enough about it, but a couple of people commented on the website, and I think Curry made it in their statement that they gave us, is that Scrums is the online
registration
thing that you can register players, and you can't register. So for example, at age grade rugby, you can't get an under 17s player can't play under 16. It just doesn't let you put them up there because he doesn't have the right clearance or doesn't have the. And so you do wonder why, or it would seem like a fairly easy fix to have it so that if that person doesn't have the right clearance or the right paperwork behind them, then you can't register them, and it picks up these problems. Because Scrums is meant to be this really comprehensive, and I suppose it's just maybe they can do maybe they can add that in. Ultimately, Curry have to take responsibility for it. It's their job to do it, but maybe Scrums could pick up, and that might be something an add-on that they could add into the Scrums. I don't know enough about it, but
it's surely just another drop-down menu selection that you just need to add.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but I think as I say, I don't think it hugely changes things for Curry. They're still second after that. It's frustrating.
Right, shall we dig into the URC then? So the Edinburgh game, as we previewed last week, saying that we would expect bonus point wins for both Edinburgh and Glasgow. That should be the expectation, because not only are the two opposition that they're playing struggling, they're also missing a large number of players for the URC games because Wales are playing South Africa on the same weekend. Edinburgh had a very strong team out. Lots of test players coming back from the autumn, and they went 7-0 down after half an hour. And it was a big effort to come back and finally seal the win late on. Didn't get the bonus point, and there's very few things to kind of highlight. I think Finn Thompson was very good on his first start, but apart from that, I don't think there was a great deal to write home about. Ben Mancaster's 50th, and he's a great player, but I mean, God, it was just such a struggle. And then Glasgow go down to the Scarlets, who are bottom of the table, and they were absolutely rubbish throughout the whole game. It was just one error after another. A number of knock-ons. I know the weather was terrible, but the Scarlets weren't making those errors, and you think they're the team really under pressure here. So yeah, to get nilled, it was it was like that. Some of the worst days against Leinster, but it's happening against the Scarlets. It's
bottom of the league, bottom team of the league, still bottom even though they won. So they're and they were adrift.
Yeah, so there's not much to talk about that, but what was interesting was what Franco came out and said afterwards was that once again his gripe about losing guys like Henko Venter, who are these gnarled foreign players who, as he said, not only are they available and they're not having to worry about the cohesion of going away with a Scotland camp and having to deal with different players, but also systems and codes and all this kind of stuff. They have a consistency, and because of their experience, they're able to help bring the younger guys through who they're also blooding in these periods. But I mean there were still so many. I mean that was really clutching at straws in that one, I think.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty poor, really. You've just been beat 23-0 by the bottom team in the league and played really poorly, and I just don't. I don't think I can't imagine anybody going, "Oh yeah, Henko Venter would have made the difference." If it's down to not having a couple of guys like Henko Venter there, then there's bigger problems at Glasgow than just the one-off defeat, because they should still be good enough to, more than good enough to go there and get a result. Even do what Edinburgh did, which I agree, nothing to write home about, but they got a bloody result. Like, they stayed in the fight. They had at least they turned up.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I kind of irritated me that. And Franco's had a beer bonnet about this all along. And I think he thinks he does have a good record of bringing through young guys. He's given young guys a shot. And I think he feels a wee bit like he should have been trusted that if he's wanting to keep a couple of these older senior guys that he trusts and knows well from previous clubs and things, then he should have been given the freedom to do that. But that's just not the way it went, and he's got to get over it. And constantly bringing it up, it just looks, I don't know, desperate. It looked a wee bit desperate to me. And the other thing I thought about was, I don't really understand it, because I mean, my understanding is it's never a hard and fast. It was never stated you cannot have any non-Scottish qualified players. It's just that from now on, it's going to be a lot harder for you to, you need to make a really strong case to do it. And Henko Venter, they were putting off there. There was a lot going on in the NSRU at the end of last year. Henko's contract was running out. He got an offer from France. It was a bloody good offer. Scottish Rugby couldn't match it, so he's away. And that's life. That's life, really. Edinburgh signed Piers O'Connor, who isn't Scottish qualified, but they made a case to presumably the SRU nominations committee, or whoever it is, or whatever committee it is that signs off new big signings, and they made the case that they've got young guys like Finn Thompson coming through, but they expect Matt Curry. I mean, Matt Curry's been injured, but or he's been unwell, but Matt Curry's going to be away with Scotland, hopefully. And they made a strong case that they needed an experienced guy in the middle of the park. And this is the guy to do it. And so he got it. So it's not like it's a closed door to these guys doing it. It just so happened that Henko Venter got a better option. The SRU were maybe part slow to do it, and you move on. But I just, still be banging on about it. And I do wonder, all this stuff about Franco for Scotland coach, if you're the SRU, you're looking at that and thinking, this guy's undermining us a wee bit here. So, and unnecessarily, I would say. So I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, they've got to improve their lots because they've got some tough fixtures coming up this weekend, both sides. We'll get into that in a minute, which is a preview for the first round of Europe for this season. Before we go there, let's have a wee bit more of a chat about the other big game of the weekend, which was South Africa 73, Wales 0. And this is not to rub salt into the Welsh wounds. I don't know whether you want to talk about that game in general, or do you want to talk about the main flashpoint, which was the Eben Etzebeth eye gouge.
Yeah, I don't think there's much you can say about it in general. The really sad thing is, it's not that much of a surprise, is it? Is it really?
No.
At all, the score.
No, the score, absolutely.
Yeah.
The score, I mean, I was listening, so I didn't watch it live. I was doing a book signing in Glasgow, and I was on the way back, so I was listening to it on the radio. And I tuned in it got to 46 points, which was still the first half. And Gareth Rhys-Owen and James Hook were on the radio, and they were just like going, "This is unbelievable. This is just so shocking." And you're like, "Guys, it's only this is." And there's the loss in Pretoria in 1998, I think it was, which was 98-15. So they're like, "We're on track to break that record." But as soon as you saw the teams, this was entirely inevitable. Because even though South Africa losing, I think they were missing 12 players. The strength of that squad is just unreal. That they were able to, even just the centres of Damien Diolande and Andre Esterhazen. You're like, Christ alive. I mean, just terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, we said it last week. What were Wales thinking? What WRU thinking taking that fixture?
It was funny though. Well, I'm sure that I read a report, and I wish I'd actually looked into it a bit more. That I'm sure someone said. I'm sure Dave Redden maybe said. The fixture was arranged 5 years ago.
I was about to ask, do you know when it was arranged? Yeah,
but that feels way too far in advance. But maybe if you're tendering for these outside the window fixtures, and they are because they're so lucrative, because there's an extra fixture, and there's all sorts of problems with those fixtures. But you're not wanting to. Well, Scotland have done it, haven't they? We kind of put USA and people like that outside the window, and you think maybe you need a big name team to sell the stadium. I think if you maybe put it at the beginning of the autumn, you're more likely to sell it out because people want to see the team and they're excited about this new window of international rugby. But if you put it at the end,
and your team's getting stuffed by everybody apart
from
Japan,
I don't know, so I'm really intrigued as to how early that was.
5 years seems an awful long time.
It seems a bizarrely long time.
I don't know that they arranged those. They wouldn't know whether they were playing them anyway. Because I don't know when World Rugby. The ones inside the window are World Rugby organised.
And I've never understood how the fixtures are organised by World Rugby.
No. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's much transparency on that. I mean, it's interesting to go back and remember. When we first started, when we stopped getting to go to the summer playing the big, proper tours to New Zealand and stuff. And it was all like, I remember the SRU being the SRU trying to dress it up as, isn't this a great opportunity? It's what we need, so we can,
grow the game.
Like it's a good thing going to the USA and Canada. Then but it was just as far as I can. It seemed to be handed down. I'm sure there's a bit of lobbying goes on in the background. So maybe if JJ had been involved,
that was just about to say JJ making maneuvers in the background.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how it does this. Maybe I've not looked into it that much, but there's never really been that much clarity on it. But I'm pretty sure they announce they do it a couple of years in advance. They don't do it 5 years. It might be.
Yeah, I don't know. But then, I'm sure the All Blacks didn't get announced for this year, I feel, until quite late on last year. Where and as soon as the tickets go on sale, they pretty much they sell 3/4 of them immediately. And if you knew miles in advance, you just go wait till the All Blacks beat South Africa or something like that, and then put them on sale immediately. They're coming. It's weird how opaque it is, isn't it?
Yeah, like a lot of things in rugby. But anyway, I don't think we need to dwell on the game.
No.
Well done, Wales, for avoiding.
What about the red card though?
What was he? It's madness. It's absolute. And I saw all this stuff the other, the next day about potentially.
Yeah, he's reacting to having had his eyes played with previously. If you actually watch it in real time, this must have been the most glancing of swipes of which he had no idea. He couldn't possibly have known his hand was touching.
No, and then since when did two wrongs make a right? It's just like
you guys. I'm going to scoop your eyeball out now.
It's irrelevant. And I thought it was interesting, like the pundits saying. I think a few of the pundits afterwards were saying, they were so far ahead and he's such an experienced player, there's no way that was intentional. And you're thinking, well, I can't see this anything other than that.
No.
So, yeah, it's crazy.
It's a bad one. It's just interesting to see how long his ban is.
Yeah, I wondered whether it was going to come out yesterday, because sometimes they're quite quick in doing it, but it's a wee bit slower at the moment. So it's a difficult one because, he's a big name in world rugby, but it's just really weird. I just don't understand. If you're Elspeth and you're really angry with something, you could do so much. You could do there's so many ways that you can hurt somebody without going for a proper cheap shot.
Yeah, I just try. Thumb in the eyeball, absolutely minging. I'm sure. John Plumtree will be absolutely delighted that their team are struggling in the league. They've got European games coming up, and he's just lost his, one of his most key players for potentially 6 months.
Yeah.
And I suppose, in many ways, I'm sure Elspeth will not be that downhearted about having a 6 month break. That leaves him plenty of time to rest and work on his arms even more before the World Cup.
Yeah, I suppose so. It was a really bizarre. It's just
very, very odd. Very odd. I'm sure Kevin Miller came out with some stats about some other red cards, because I think somebody just said, he's not a dirty player and this doesn't happen. Or just South Africans do it. And then he listed a whole load of similar gouging bans that have come in over the last few years.
Yeah, including Henko.
Yes.
Henko. Yeah. I do actually think that was an accident, that one. I'm good for the Elspeth defence on Henko, because he doesn't seem like that kind of player. But I genuinely think that was the case. I think he didn't realise where his hand was. But anyway, having slagged Franco off and now not constantly moaning about Henko, I don't want to turn it into a Henko kicking match, because Henko seems like a very nice guy.
No.
I don't really have a problem with him. I just think we just need to accept that he's gone, and Glasgow still shouldn't get beat by 23 points by the bottom team in the league.
Yeah.
Whether Henko's there or not.
Was bad. Yeah. Yeah. So the World Cup pool, Barney, it's just come out, and Scotland are in Pool D with our old friends Ireland, and then we've also got Uruguay, who we played against on tour in 2024, and then we've got Portugal, who are one of the darlings of the 2023 World Cup. So, our old friend Ireland, 3 World Cups in a row, and then we can add the 1991 World Cup on top of that when we played them as well. It's not as terrible. It's not. I don't think. As we've discussed before, maybe I'm being premature in signalling the death knell for Irish rugby at test level, but I would say that they're not tracking to be on the same force that they were in 2019 or 2023. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, although then you see like that guy Postlethwaite coming through at Ulster and stuff, and you kind of, I think back to when they had the Driscoll golden age, and you're thinking, well, that's them had their, because that was the kind of routine Scotland and Ireland were in. They've had their little bit, and then they kind of come again with the Sexton lot, and then the next lot. So it does feel a wee bit like that. And they're under, they've not been as successful at age grade stuff. Certainly where they're at the moment, they're probably not as intimidating as they were. Well, they're not as intimidating as they were when we played them 2 years ago at that World Cup. I kind of when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that is the worst draw because it's Ireland again, and they're just their nemesis." And then I came around to thinking it's actually the best draw because there's loads of history. You probably want to get, one of the big Southern Hemispheres in terms of the glamour. Although we play them quite a lot now anyway, we're going to play them even more in the Nations Championship. But because of all the history, by the time we get round to that game, will be absolutely huge. The hype will be massive. The Irish press and fans will be getting really furious that we're even daring to turn up to face their boys. And so there'll be loads of like that build up will be brilliant. I'm just kind of concerned that the aftermath will be the same as the last 2 years, which was pretty grim. The last two World Cups, which is pretty grim.
The way it works now, so it goes through to the round of 16, and based on that, if we win the pool, so if we beat Ireland and then presumably we don't have a shocker against Uruguay or Portugal, we would then face the best third place team from, is that right? Definitely right. We don't play a runner up.
If we win the pool D winner plays Pool B, E, F, best third. That's what it says. It's right at the bottom of the infographic. B, E,
so that's
F.
So from Pool B, that could be Georgia or Romania. More likely to be Georgia, I would say, at this stage. In Pool E, that is going to be USA or Samoa. And Pool F, that is going to be Tonga or Zimbabwe,
or maybe Wales.
So, or maybe Wales if they've had a shocker. And then from that, if you come second in Pool D, we would play France in the last 16. So again, it's a massive, massive game for Ireland and Scotland that encounter in Pool D. France still, obviously, a juggernaut, one of the favourites for the World Cup. But of those top 4 or 5 teams in the world, I'd probably quite fancy playing them.
Yeah. Well, we've beaten them, haven't we? In living memory.
We have a game that challenges them.
Yeah. I think I agree with that in terms of getting the top 4. I think that's...
Yeah. And again, it's a kind of... If you get through, it's the last 16. Ideally, we make the quarterfinals. But there's no pressure on Scotland. There's massive pressure on France to win a World Cup for the first time, to make amends for 2023. And do France cope under pressure? I'm not sure. I think they are the best when they're written off.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Projecting ahead.
So you're sounding like you expected to be playing France. You're not really putting many eggs in the...
No. I actually genuinely, I know if we were in a pool with South Africa, New Zealand, Argentina, France or England, or England, I'd be, thinking, well, we're not going to win the pool game, are we? And so we're, got a toughie in the last 16. I think we've actually, as you say, I think we've lucked out massively with that draw.
Yeah.
Since we are in the second band of nations, I think we have that's been as favourable an outcome I think is possible. Yeah,
I think that's right.
But it's all about what your expectations are for the World Cup. Like what is a good thing for Scotland? You want to get into the last 16 I think as a bare minimum. Quarterfinal is a great target to aim for. And then, logically you're thinking you're only 3 games away from lifting the trophy. But we're not going to do that. So, but what are your expectations? We base so much thought on the 4-year cycle, and I don't really know why, because we're not ever going to win the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. And without getting ahead of ourselves, so we say we do end up playing France, okay, and we do end up beating them. Then in the quarterfinal, you've got the best of 2 runners-up, which is Pool C and Pool F. So the runners-up in Pool C are potentially Fiji
probably.
And the runners-up in Pool F are Wales, probably. So then you're thinking, well, like, you should really
on!
But then you're through to the semi-final, and that's when you've got both South Africa. I'm pretty sure South Africa and the All Blacks are on that side of the draw. Yeah,
South Africa. So I think they're going to play each other in the semi-final.
Yeah, so that's a huge game. And I suppose that's interesting because the other teams that do have a real second, France are on that side of the draw. So teams like like if you look at the other pool winners on the other side of the draws, it's the F's, C, D, and F pool winners. So you're looking at England, Ireland, and Argentina. Now they're looking at thinking, that's a pretty tasty route to the final for them, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So,
Absolutely.
And then I think Australia will be on that side of the draw as a home nation and a team that does quite often come good for the World Cup. You
A lot rests on that. Yeah, a lot rests on that. So the opening fixture of the whole World Cup is Australia against New Zealand, and that is what a mega way to open.
Yeah. So is
much
that
like 2023? Yeah, I think that's already been.
They said that in their very long, as we talked about off air, very long preamble to actually doing the draw on the World Rugby feed. They did say that they said what would the ideal draw be, and they said New Zealand Australia's opening fixture would be great, but they're not announcing the fixtures until.
No, but they're not going to open. They're not going to open the tournament Australia against Chile or Australia against Hong Kong, China. I tell you what, I have got some real, genuine fears for Hong Kong, China in this tournament. I mean, how are these part-timers going to play against the All Blacks in Australia?
Yeah,
and Chile even. I mean, Chile are decent.
Yeah, you do wonder. Yeah, all this the tournament's getting expanded because the game's getting so big. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective. That's quite scary, really.
It's actually genuinely terrifying.
And it's not like you can do at schoolboy rugby when you kind of play a school that's really weak, and so you put out your second team or your third team. You've taken a World Cup squad, so like you can't.
Yeah, there's 33 players, I think, in each squad. So that's still like an incredible team that you're going to put out, even if you put out your seconds. It's not like you think back to some of the ones like in 1995 when New Zealand put whatever it was 120 points on Japan. Mm-hmm. These are like professional athletes now. And against part-timers from Hong Kong and China. I mean...
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know how they're going to manage that. That's an interesting...
I don't either. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen how that goes. Last week, you were at a press briefing with SRU Chief Executive Alex Williamson. Listeners, there's a brilliant report on the Offside Line for anyone who'd like to get into the nitty-gritty of that. But Barney, could you give us a kind of overview of what he was chatting about?
Yeah, so it was after the AGM. They had the AGM, and by recent standards, it was quite a low-key AGM. There's not a huge amount of governance anguish or financial turmoil to kind of, for people to get, their knickers in a twist. And it was quite funny. I was walking into the AGM. The press get to go there as observers, and I spoke to Bill Folds, who's Falkirk president. He's a really good guy, really committed, and he was one of the guys that, the AGM. He was very good. He stood up and stood his ground and made really good cases, and he's just a really passionate grassroots rugby guy, but sees the bigger picture. He's not anyway. And he walked in. He goes, "This is a bit weird, David. It's like walking into an AGM and not being ready for a fight." So you're thinking, it's kind of and although Bill did get up and had not had a go, but that was one of the slightly contentious things was there's a bit of anxiety at the moment. You've got this new open conference, which is. And there's 5 schools and 3 top clubs, and Falkirk, I suspect they're referring to Stirling. There's concern that players are getting scooped up by the big club. These big clubs are getting scooped up, and that leaves the other clubs really struggling. And it's not necessarily players going the other way. And it's the old Super Hoover thing that we had with Super 6. So he did get up and he kind of discussed that. But by general standards, it was a pretty low key. And then they did a briefing afterwards with Alex Williamson, and as expected. There was a lot of chat about Gregor Townsend, and it was a full-throated endorsement, backing of Gregor from the chief executive, Alex Williamson, which you'd expect. And the interesting thing about that was that didn't come up. In the old days of the governance turmoil and the Mark Dodson era, it was all about they were trying to minimise the influence of the club and minimise it because they were the serious businessmen and they didn't want the club. The club shouldn't be interfering. We didn't want the tail wagging the dogs, and they couldn't be getting involved. Nobody at the AGM asked a question about Gregor Townsend. Right. Somebody I spoke to the other week was quite surprised. But the clubs don't see that as their responsibility. They go to the AGM, they want to know about things like youth players, youth pathways, funding for the club game and all that stuff. They don't, and that it kind of proved the lie, or that proved the kind of complete nonsense, which was we need to kind of keep the clubs as far out as possible because they're sticking their nose in and they don't know how to run it.
They're not
they
trying
don't care.
To, yeah.
Well, they do care.
They care, but they're not trying to
They care like rugby fans.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like every rugby fan, they don't see it as their job to be, pressing. So anyway, the journalists do see it as their job because they're nosy buggers, and so we pushed, and he was just very, strong that you thought Gregor was the right man for the job when they gave him it. I mean, he did say he's guided by David Nucifora on this. The book ultimately stops Alex Williamson, but David Nucifora thinks he's a good coach. That was a bad result. He kind of got caught out. I don't know. Got picked up on social media a bit. He said, I was actually more disappointed with the Argentina game. I thought we could have won that by 20 points. And I kind of know where he's coming from. But I mean, for Scotland, when you talk about Scotland to say, "Oh, we should have beaten the All Blacks by 20 points," so he got a bit of mocking on social media. That got picked up by the Ruck and these kind of online websites that weren't there, but they kind of so they kind of took the piss out of him a wee bit for that, which was probably a slightly. It wasn't that clever thing to say, but it happens. And then he spoke a lot about. He spoke about the finances. The finances are in pretty good nick. We've talked about this before, compared to where it's been. I think people that are far better accountants than you and I. I'm assuming you're as bad an accountant as I am, Burnsy, or not very.
I am
accountant-minded.
Absolutely dreadful. Yes, I have.
Yeah, good to hear. Yeah, so am I.
My mathematician wife next door, however, did maths at university. She's very handy to have around for that kind of thing.
That is useful. That is very useful. But the people that understand these things better than I do. One of the thing they point out is that there has been an increase in turnover. Turnover's up, but that's mainly ticket prices. It's mainly ticket revenue. So you've got the stadium. It's got a limited capacity. Your prices are already pretty high for New Zealand, and these things. Where's the extra? Where's the continued growth there? And costs. They've not really reduced the wage costs, and so they've done well. They've got things back under control, but is there more room for growth? And their attitude is their view on that, and it was quite interesting. Was ticket prices is an ongoing thing. Let's look at it. The premium tickets are really expensive. They pointed out that, and I don't really know the answer to this. I've not done a full survey of it, but tickets for the USA and Tonga aren't that expensive. There might be a bit of room there. I mean, I'd be concerned about that because kids get to go and see Scotland versus the USA. Might not be the most glamorous fixture, but at least they're getting to go to Murrayfield to see Scotland play. And if you start, if we've got to have something. If we're not going to, and if we're not going to have affordable New Zealand tickets, we do need to have that. But the big thing is, I think. Making more use of Murrayfield, and it's going back to what we talked about. They think they've spent money on hospitality. They're going to spend another $7 million this year, not on hospitality, or just on continue to upgrade the stadium. So they think there's growth there. And I was quite pleased during the AGM. John McGuigan, the chair of the SRU, said he said, "I'm going to talk about finances quickly." He was doing his presentation. And he said, I always read the offside line to see what David's analysis of the accounts is, which my old man, as everybody knows, my old man will be biting, furious that it's me that's getting the credit for the analysis of it. But anyway, he said, and I noticed that David said this morning that, the thing about the costs, about the wage costs, and all I would say to that, I see his point, all I would say to that is that you can't cut your way to success. But I was quite pleased. I was like the smug schoolboy sitting there with the journalist. I was like, teacher just mentioned my name. So that was quite interesting. So that and I was just quite. There's a couple of things that come out of it. They seem to have a plan. They're going in the right. It does seem to go in the right direction. There is concerns. I think there's concerns that the SRU, the 15% of turnover is meant to go to, at least 50% is meant to go to the club game. Now it's questionable whether that's really the case. What they're counting towards that and what they're not counting towards that. There's what they called, I think it's pass-through expenses. So it's things like if you have a concert. Well, that's another area where you think you get big revenue is more concerts.
They don't have that many flagship ones that they had. They've got Bon Jovi for one night, and they got a couple of country singers. They got Luke Combs and somebody else coming, but they're not like it's not like Oasis or Taylor Swift.
Yeah. So I asked them about that,
or Beyonce.
And they said, yeah, Beyonce. Yeah, they've had some big ones. And I asked them about that, and they said, if you actually look... I mean, they pointed out that these country and western are huge bands in their own right. And funnily enough, I brought up with Maisie, my daughter, and she showed me a video on Instagram of them playing at... down in London, I think at Hyde Park or something. Okay. One of the country bands. We're showing one of those country lot. And it was mobbed, but it was interesting. The video said best £100 I've ever. It was a great. She said it looks really good, and it's the best £100 I've ever spent. Now you're spending £250, £300, so you might sell out Murrayfield, but you'll not be selling out at the same price. They pointed out it was actually David White, who's the new chief financial officer, and he sat in on the briefing as well, and he pointed out that if you look at downloads on Spotify. These guys aren't that far off what Oasis get. Okay. But I mean, a lot of those downloads are going to be in Tennessee and
well, yes,
Kentucky.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like how many people in Edinburgh? But I think they're bigger bands than maybe you and I. People like you and I.
Oh no, they're just not.
But they're not.
I'm sure they will sell very well. They're just not flagship like global event like those three were.
And you're not going to sell it, and you're not going to be able to, and it's a premium ticket price thing, you're not going to be able to charge the premium you get.
Yeah.
But they're working, they definitely see that they've got scope to use the venue more.
Yeah.
And that's where they see revenue coming. And then they're also hopeful with the Nations Cup coming in. I mean, ultimately...
Oh, well, I was going to say that
TV
will
money.
suddenly TV money, I suppose more coherent, I suppose the plan is more coherent sponsorship deal with advertisers for around this one competition where they're all sharing it. And for those games at home, I hate the idea of it being more meaningful because I always feel that those games are meaningful in their own right anyway. But there's just something that's positive for their ticket sales, I would say, going forward.
Yeah. It's not going to harm it, is it?
No.
And the TV one, and it's dead obviously, but it did make me think, for the last however many years, Scotland's summer tours, I mean, they basically, I think Alex said that, it's, we've been battling to get them on, basically said, to get it on TV.
Oh yeah, because
Certainly
goes to
weren't big,
Premier Sports probably for like 50 quid. Just to satisfy broadcast for the sponsors. Your shirt is going to, on o'clock, your shirt's going to be on telly for an hour and a half.
Yeah, so if they can get themselves as part of a bigger deal, then there's a wee bit of money there. So, I mean, I think generally the whole thing was pretty positive in terms of where the money's going. The general direction of the money is, and it does make you think there must be a hell of a lot of waste and a lot of money spent on the wrong things before to be getting up to 13 million.
Yeah, I wonder if the legacy
deficit
of COVID, I don't know, still.
Yeah. Yeah,
you just kind of
it's
just like kind of sliding doors moments, obviously, without kind of reducing the horrors of a pandemic down to rugby finances. But the CVC money comes in right on the brink of COVID happening and ultimately saves rugby in many regards because that money was used for that. But the sliding doors moment had been if it had come at another time and say we'd survived the pandemic financially, how that money could have been used in a more positive light for developing the game. And now 1/6 of the Six Nations money and however much of the URC money goes to CVC, who don't seem to be, as far as I'm aware, offering much else going forward. They were meant to be the ones bringing all the broadcasting under one umbrella, bringing all the the tournaments together, and none of that's happened. And it's not been because of them.
Yeah, exactly. So the timing was unfortunate in that sense. But you're right. What like big part of the selling point was these guys are going to bring this expertise. I can't see what they've done at all.
No.
Like, there's been nothing really. Maybe they've kind of cajoled World Rugby into getting this nation, but that's World Rugby's driven that Nations Cup.
Yeah, it's not CVC. CVC have not been doing that.
No, and the Nations Cup Championship, Nations Championship is called. It's okay, but like it's not. I mean, I'm not overly excited about it. I don't feel like it's
and it's like a weird quasi World Cup where.
Yeah,
I'm excited about the World Cup. I'm not excited about this tournament.
No, yeah. So something I was going to say on that. It must have been really really smart and clever because I've completely forgotten what it was. But it was just to point out, just the general. So the finances, you've gone from a 13 million 10. It was 10.5 then up to 13.3 or something like that. And it's down to just over 2 million, just under 3 million. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 3 million. It's over 3 million,
yeah. But you look at what happened, the RFU, they had a 42 million loss the year before. They're down to 2 million. So there's obviously a general trend that, things are, it's an easier
Irish Rugby
environment
Union were the same. Their deficits, they still have one, but it's way down on what it was.
Yeah. And I'm not sure about Wales. God knows what's happening in Wales. I mean, I think they're...
Yeah, I think... we don't dig too much into that. I think it's not going well. Not going well.
It's not going well. Let's just leave it at that.
Right. Was there any other? Oh yes. The only other real bit of news is R360 have paused their ambitions for 2 years now. Barney, do you think this is a pause or is this a gentle retreat?
I think it's a gentle retreat. What do you think?
I hope it's a gentle retreat because it just seems what it feels like, and I really like listening to the Good, Bad, and the Rugby with my old Edinburgh Accies pal Alex Payne, and they've done shows. I think in the last I kind of feel it's about 2 years ago they did a one of their shows around Christmas time was to all three of them come up with a plan for how you would restructure World Rugby, kind of like the homework that we set ourselves at the end of the last season, which we've yet to do on the Scottish season. But on a global season, what would you do? And it just feels like doing that, but you've also met some guys in Saudi Arabia who will maybe actually have the cash to throw into this, or they say they do. But then you have, and so it's a great idea, on the back of a fag packet, great idea. You take all the top people out, we make this F1 style league, huge TV revenue, fans will love it. It's going to be a 3-day festival every city you go to. There'll be bands, brilliant. Sounds magic. But then you get into the fine detail, as all these things tend to have, you hit your problems when you get into the fine detail. And they've not been forthcoming with anyone. It's not just the media. It's not with the players or the agents about things like physios and doctors and all that kind of stuff, and what happens suddenly if you get injured, and who owns each of these franchises, what are the fees involved, and all this kind of stuff. Without those answers, it can't be ratified by World Rugby, and no one's going to sign on for it if you haven't got the healthcare as much as anything. I think it's just too big. It's too big, and the idea that you're just able to scoop out these players out of the pro game. And I was listening to the Ruck This Morning Times podcast, and they made a great point. Imagine you've got your franchise and you lose 2 or 3 tight head props to injury. Do you then have to go, you've then got to go to the pro game and try and scoop out 1 or 2 more tight heads? So how much are you paying for that? Yeah. Will they let them go? What the contract situation? It's this weird feeder system to this circus for which the game doesn't really get any money back. They'll get compensation in that scenario for releasing players, but because their contract has run out with Sale Sharks and they've now signed with R360, there's no money going back into the Premiership, who are just feeding this beast.
Yeah, and having just said the Nations Championship, it's not it's fine, but it doesn't fill me with a huge amount of excitement. 2 years' time, that's established, that's going. Things have moved on, and they're coming back to the table and saying, "We've still got this."
And who are you signing? Because you're only going to get at that stage, after the World Cup, you're only going to get the guys retiring. Pretty much, you might pick up 1 or 2 players, but the other big rival to them is the NRL. You think of the number of Aussie players who've gone over to NRL, some of which have come back again, but they've got serious cash as well, and a brand, and the way they sell that game at the moment is just incredible. Rugby Union's got a lot to learn from how they sell. Rugby League sells the glitz and glam and that game to the paying public.
I mean, I suppose that's the hope that if something good could come out of it. It's a wee bit like when there was that kind of the rugby war with Kerry Packer and Rupert Murdoch back in the late 90s, and out of that came Super Rugby, which was brilliant for the first. I think you said that quite. So if it gets the World Rugby and the big unions, all the unions, thinking a bit more about what do we do to really sell the game, what can we learn from the NRL, what can we learn from the NFL and football, what can we learn, then at least something positive come out. But I still don't. I feel like a broken record, but I still don't really believe that there's an appeal for 8 kind of weird franchises that don't really have any sort of historical, cultural ties. And I've asked Robbie about it, and he's kind of like, oh, well, I'd watch Finn play. But you think, I don't think he kind of thinks about it that way, but I'm just not convinced that he would go, he's a Bath supporter now because Finn's there, but he likes the history of Bath. He's not a student of the history of the game, but there's a bit of there's something there he can tie into. There's something there he can kind of understand. Whereas I don't know that he would. I mean,
if you had the opening game, so the idea next year is that this Nations, what's it called?
Nations Championship.
Nations Championship will have its final around this time of year. Also, at this time of year was this plan that they'd sell out Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for 3 days for this festival of the R360. Now they've got to sell a lot of tickets across both venues this time of year. And then I think I'd probably watch it out of interest. But would I then be getting up to watch the one that, as they're traveling around the world, the one that starts at 5 a.m. No, I'm not going to get up and watch it. I'll maybe watch the highlights. But then, like, how much interest do I really have? And with only 8 teams, you're going to get a breakaway quite early on, I would say, among, there'll be some teams that are absolutely shite. No matter the playing quality, something won't work. They won't all work. And then how interesting is it? Like,
Yeah. And you might go down to London to watch a game, you personally, from Edinburgh. You're not going to go to Dubai. You're not going to go to, how do you fill
they say,
stadiums?
Like, it's going to be like the IPL. Yeah, but the IPL's all in India. It's very, like, in terms of what's the population in India? Like 2 billion?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. So they know when...
And it's a national sport, and they're mad for it.
They know when it's on, so they can watch it locally. Yeah. They can go to the stadiums, and they can watch it on telly, and they can read about it in the newspapers. So, every week it's the same time, and it's there, it's local. It's not traveling around the world. And F1 works, but I think F1 has also been saved by Netflix in terms of, and it's become a global interest sport like it's never been before. But the cost of that, there have been times where it's a billionaire's playground that they are putting teams in. But there must have been many times over the past 30 years where it's been on the brink of collapse because it's so expensive to run.
And F1's a spectacle. It's a sport, but it's a spectacle. It's a big race. So you go to Monaco because it's a big race. It's a place to be seen, and there's a focal point of one thing that you're going there to do. I mean, I know there's the kind of, the time trial, all the stuff leading up to it and people getting, but, that's... I'm a rugby nose, and I would want to go for a weekend away and watch 4 games of rugby or 6 games of rugby if I'm doing the women's games as well. Yeah. It's just too much rugby. Yeah, I'm going to spend my whole time sitting in a stadium. It's just like, I just think the whole concept. You're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. I think. India are mad for cricket. Half these countries. We're talking about trying to take. And it's in their country. We're trying to take this thing around the world to countries that don't really give a shit about rugby.
No, absolutely.
So it's just,
Anyway, so I think we both are in agreement that it's a tactical, gentle retreat.
Yeah, tactical, gentle. Yeah, never to be heard of again. Probably.
And fair play. Mike Tyndall put his head above the parapet. I'm sure he has been nicely remunerated for all his hard work. But no, back to the drawing board. I think.
Yep.
Right. This weekend's fixtures for the clubs that do exist and leagues and competitions that have got pedigree and history and everyone's actually interested in. European fixtures kick off this weekend. Glasgow down to Sale on Friday night for an 8 p.m. kickoff. Then on Sunday, Edinburgh host Toulon at the Hive at 5:30 p.m. In the Arnold Clark Women's Premiership, Cartha host Geary in a rescheduled match that was lost to Frost. And a quick throw-ahead preview, the final between Stirling County and Watsonians is on the 13th of December live on BBC Alba, and we'll talk about that more next week. In the Arnold Clark Men's Premiership, Glasgow Hawks welcome Watsonians, Heriots host Curry in the Edinburgh Derby, Melrose travel to Ayr, Kelso have GHA, and Selkirk host Hoyk in the Border Derby. Now, how do we think? Well, let's just dip into European fixtures. Nice to have both the teams in the big comp. Glasgow down at Sale is going to be a tough assignment on the back of last week, but it's going to be a much changed team.
God, I don't know. I'm going down. I'm in a car with Mark Palmer and Craig Watson,
good.
So that'll be fun. Yeah, meeting them at Moffat, and then driving down. I did swear I was never going to do any more of those because those two love these weird road trips, but I've been sucked back in. I don't know. I really don't know with the Glasgow. I think you have to back Sale at home.
Yeah, I think the bookies would have Sale for sure. I think it'll be close, but I think they're not having the best season in the Prem. I think they're below where you'd expect them to be.
Yeah, with the players they've got.
But they're going to have all their England players back. George Ford is in incredible form for England at the moment. So if that transfers to his game management for Friday night, then that's going to be a real challenge for Glasgow.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
But they don't want to write Glasgow off either. They've done some extraordinary results over the years. Just flattered to deceive in Europe.
Yeah. I'm going Sale by, do you want to score?
Yeah.
22-12.
Yeah.
Sale.
I think that sounds, Christ. 4 penalties for Adam Hastings. Come on, got to get a George Horn try in there as well.
Yeah.
Closer. I don't know. And then Sunday, Toulon, who are currently, I think, second in the top 14. They're very, very, very powerful once again. It's not quite the heyday of when they were winning back-to-back European Cups and top 14 titles, but they are a very, very good outfit once again. And Edinburgh are not. So I think that could be a tough old evening at the Hive. Should they do it, would be the most incredible kickstart to their campaign. And you never know, you might get another 2012 revival season in Europe. But I think you got to fancy Toulon to probably win really quite comfortably on Sunday.
Okay. What score are you going for? I agree with that. What score
I
are you
think
going for?
it'll be 34-8. Like an actual, I think it could be a doing.
Right.
I don't think Edinburgh have to play that badly, but I just think Toulon are just head and shoulders better, and with squad depth off the bench. You know, even at 9, you're talking between Ben White and Baptiste Saran, who are just they're top drawer 9s, and then you spread that out across the whole team, and you never know, you might get Maanonu coming in aged 104 to score his 900th try of his career. I mean, he's just somehow still coming out, and he would do damage against the Edinburgh midfield coming on late.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
What do you think?
So I agree with that. I think I'm not going. I'm going to be slightly more optimistic, but I'm going to say 28-14.
Okay. Still no points. No points in the table.
No. Nil point.
I mean, you never know. You only need about 4 points from the whole thing to actually get through to the next round. But it's a very weird competition.
Yeah.
When that's what Mike Tyndall should be sorting out, is getting back to the pool stages of the good old Heineken Cup and having some kind of extra incentive financially for the French teams to keep their teams interested in in the final couple of rounds. Or penalties if you're putting out the bin juice in the fight that throws the whole thing after. It's always that back-to-back game in the middle, and then after that you'd either carry on putting your strongest team out, or people would just throw in the towel.
You're right. Sorting out the structure of the Champions Cup, that's an easy. Well, I'm not sure it's an easy fix, but that should be the priority. Things like that, bit of jeopardy, but you're right.
And what's the pick of the games from the men's Prem then? Hawks Watsonians. A reminder: Hawks Watsonians, Heriots Curry, Melrose at Ayr, Kelso have GHA, and Selkirk host Hawick.
So I think I really fancy the Selkirk Hawick game. I'm going through to Hawks versus Watsonians. It's the old. Lou Stewart's not around this weekend, so I've not got many of my West Coasters. Ian Hayes going down to Ayr, but I think Hawick, that was a big result for Hawick on Saturday. At home, against Border Derby, they've been struggling a wee bit. They're better at home. They're better at home than their way, and it was 3-3 at half time. Funnily enough, because I was at my parents' wedding anniversary, and Jim Rennick and these guys were there, and Jane, Jim's partner Jane, she goes to all the games, and she's like, "What's the score? Have you got the score?" And it was 3-3 at half time, and I was like, "You did well to miss this one, Jane." She's like, but then she was absolutely gutted at the end, because they obviously did a really strong second half, and I just think it's a real bottom versus second bottom, 2 border clubs, bit of history there. That could be a right good scrap. So I'm kind of slightly not disappointed, but Alan Lorne was good to that game for us, so that's a good game. And Heriots Curry, 2 playoff challengers, 2 Edinburgh teams, another interesting derby. So some good games for anybody that wants to enjoy club rugby in the flesh. Get out there and watch
it. And if you can't, you'll be able to get the full match reports for each fixture on the offsideline.com. Speaking of which, another shout out to the online store, where you can get all sorts of merch like hoodies, caps, sweatshirts, t-shirts, hats and bags, as well as a selection of the very best rugby books on the market. So do yourself a favour, listeners, make Christmas shopping super easy and get yourself to the shop tab at theoffsideline.com. Barney, a pleasure as always. We managed, despite the lack of enthusiasm for recording this week's episode, we did it. And it was good.
We did.
Well done.
That was a lot better than I'm not sure that we did a great marketing job on ourselves here. We
Everyone's
started
switching
the
off at the beginning.
saying,
first 3 minutes. No, I'm not.
Neither of us are in the mood for this.
Well, we'll be more enthused next week.
You get honesty.
We just need Edinburgh and Glasgow not to get nilled or be absolutely dreadful on Friday and Sunday, and we'll be fine and fettle to chat next week. But we'll see. Listeners, we'll be in your ears then. Barney, I will see you then. Cheers, pal.
See you then. Thanks, mate.
It's the offside line.
This is not soccer. Is that clear?
Utmost danger. Danger could be there. In fact, it's a try. A magnificent try for the 21-year-old.